Charlie Kirk scene footage, scene immediately wiped off tonight. We take you inside one of the most unsettling mysteries surrounding the high-profile shooting of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. It was a night that gripped the nation, sirens blaring, cameras flashing, and a nation holding its breath. But now, questions are multiplying after new reports reveal that critical surveillance footage that could have shed light on what truly happened at the scene, was not preserved, but instead wiped almost immediately after the shooting. Why was this footage erased? Was it a tragic accident in the chaos of that night? Or was it something far more deliberate? Our investigation doesn't aim to sensationalize, but to uncover. We'll walk you through the timeline of events, the voices raising alarm, and the responses from authorities. We'll explore what the missing evidence means for the trial of Tyler Robinson, the man convicted in this case, and why the public is demanding answers. This isn't just about one incident. It's about transparency, trust, and the questions that arise when evidence disappears in plain sight. Stay with us as we piece together the story the cameras captured before the footage was erased. This version avoids conspiracy claims, hate speech, or graphic detail, keeping it brand safe and suitable for ads, while still being dramatic and professional. Before we dive into this story, remember, this is Detective Kate, True Crime, a channel that stands for justice and giving every case the attention it deserves. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our investigations. And don't forget, share your thoughts and theories below. Every clue counts. It was just after 9 p.m. on a crowded street when the sound of gunfire broke the evening calm. Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk had been leaving a speaking engagement, surrounded by staff, supporters, and a heavy media presence. Witnesses say the scene turned to chaos in seconds, people scattering, police racing toward the sound, and Kirk rushed to the ground by security. Authorities quickly locked down the area. Within minutes, officers had detained a suspect, Tyler Robinson, a young man found just blocks away. Police said Robinson was in possession of a rifle, and in those tense first hours, investigators announced they had their man. The initial narrative from law enforcement painted a straightforward picture: a political commentator targeted, a suspect caught nearby with a weapon, and a swift arrest meant to reassure a shaken public. Officials urged calm, calling the incident an open and shut case. But as the days unfolded, cracks began to appear. Questions emerged about what really happened in those crucial minutes between the shooting and Robinson's arrest. And at the center of it all, footage from the scene, footage that could have shown the truth, but was reportedly erased almost as soon as it was recorded. In the hours after the shooting, investigators assured the public that evidence was being carefully collected. What many didn't know at the time, however, was that several security cameras overlooking the street had captured the chaos as it unfolded. Shops, restaurants, and even a nearby traffic camera had clear lines of sight to the scene. Those cameras, sources later confirmed, were recording in real time. For investigators, this should have been a critical breakthrough, a chance to piece together the truth, frame by frame. But when defense attorneys began requesting that footage, they were met with a stunning revelation: the files no longer existed. The recordings had been erased, some within hours of the shooting, others flagged as corrupted and unrecoverable. That discovery has fueled a storm of questions. Who had access to those recordings? Why were they erased so quickly, before trial proceedings even began? And perhaps the most troubling question of all, what might they have shown? Was this simply a case of technical malfunction, as officials later claimed? Or was crucial evidence deliberately wiped away in one of the most high-profile shootings in recent memory? In our investigation, we spoke to people who were there that night, and to those who claimed to know what happened after the shooting. A store clerk working just across the street recalls the cameras above his shop. They were working that night. I remember because I checked the monitor before closing. But when the police came asking, suddenly I was told the files were gone. Just gone. A nearby resident, who asked not to be identified, described a similar experience. We've had that traffic camera for years. It's always recording. But the day after the shooting, I noticed the city crews were out there. By the next morning, officials were saying nothing usable existed. It didn't sit right with me, and then came perhaps the most startling account from a whistleblower who claims to have worked briefly in the evidence chain. I saw the request come through for video backups. I also saw the notice that the files had been flagged for deletion. That doesn't happen by accident. Someone had to push a button. These voices, though unverified, raise serious concerns about the chain of custody. If video files were erased, either intentionally or through negligence, then one of the most vital pieces of evidence in the case may have been lost forever. And with that loss comes a haunting question: how can a jury or the public be expected to trust the verdict when the very footage that could show what really happened no longer exists? When pressed on the missing footage, authorities moved quickly to shut down speculation. Officials insisted that no wrongdoing occurred, attributing the erasures to a technical malfunction, a rare but not impossible glitch, they said, in the city's surveillance system. Police spokespeople reassured the public that other forms of evidence, eyewitness statements, ballistic tests, and forensic reports were enough to build their case. They urged citizens to trust the process, emphasizing that the deletion of video files had no bearing on the outcome. But investigative reporters weren't satisfied. Through public records requests, they uncovered that backup drives, which are designed to store copies of all city surveillance, also contained no trace of the footage. That raised the stakes. Why were the backups missing? How could multiple systems fail at the exact same time? And why, according to technicians, were other videos from the same night perfectly intact, except for those tied to the shooting? The inconsistencies deepened public skepticism. To some, it was a series of unfortunate coincidences. To others, it looked like a deliberate effort to erase the one piece of evidence that might have answered the biggest question of all: who actually pulled the trigger? As Tyler Robinson's trial unfolded, the missing surveillance footage became a shadow hanging over the proceedings. For the defense, it was a glaring hole, one they argued could have changed everything. Robinson's attorneys told the jury that video from the scene might have shown another figure, another weapon, or even proven their client's innocence. At the very least, they argued, the absence of those recordings created reasonable doubt. When the most direct evidence of what happened that night vanishes, one defense lawyer said, "How can we call this a fair trial?" But prosecutors pushed back hard. They maintained that Robinson's guilt was supported by what they called overwhelming evidence. Eyewitness accounts placing him near the scene, the rifle recovered just blocks away, and ballistics that they claimed tied that weapon to the shooting. The missing video, they argued, was irrelevant to the core facts. This case is about a man with a gun, at the wrong place, at the wrong time, and the devastating consequences of his actions. The lead prosecutor told jurors. In the end, the jury sided with the prosecution. Robinson was convicted, sentenced, and the case was declared closed. Yet the questions about that missing footage lingered, questions that would not go away, and that continue to haunt the verdict to this day. The missing footage didn't just stay inside the courtroom. It spilled into the streets, the airwaves, and the halls of power. As news of the erased recordings broke, the country found itself locked in yet another battle of perception. Some news networks seized on the story, calling it a cover-up. They pointed to the timing of the deletions, the missing backups, and the reliance on circumstantial evidence. Commentators warned that if surveillance footage in such a high-profile case could disappear so easily, no trial verdict could truly be trusted. Other outlets dismissed those claims, branding the uproar as distractions fueled by partisanship. They argued that focusing on missing video only gave false hope to Robinson's supporters, and that the conviction was already sealed by credible evidence. Activists took to the streets and social media. Justice reform groups demanded an independent inquiry, claiming the erasures revealed deep flaws in evidence handling. Meanwhile, politicians split sharply. Some called the controversy proof of a broken justice system, while others accused Robinson's defenders of spreading conspiracy theories to undermine the rule of law. On social platforms, the debate raged. Hashtags trended nationwide, #missing footage, #justice for Kirk, #free Robinson. Each one became a rallying cry, for some a demand for truth and transparency, for others a fight to preserve the original conviction. The shooting of Charlie Kirk was no longer just a criminal case. It had become a flashpoint in America's culture wars, raising profound questions about justice, evidence and trust in the institutions meant to protect both. In the midst of the growing uproar, one voice carried particular weight, that of Erica Kirk, Charlie's wife. Until then, she had remained largely private, grieving away from the spotlight. But as headlines swirled and social media battles raged, she stepped forward. Standing before cameras, Erica called for calm. "I understand the anger. I understand the frustration," she said, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. "But this moment should not divide us further. It should bring us together in search of truth." Her words struck a delicate balance, urging transparency from authorities, while also demanding respect for her husband's memory. Erica made it clear she wanted answers about the missing footage, but she refused to let the controversy erase the human cost at the center of it all. To supporters of Robinson, her call for truth felt like validation. To those convinced of his guilt, it was a reminder that justice must first honor the victim. And to millions watching across the nation, Erica's statement crystallized the central dilemma: how to pursue answers without tearing the country further apart. Her brief but powerful intervention didn't end the debate. If anything, it intensified it, ensuring that the questions around Charlie Kirk's shooting and the erasure of the footage would remain alive in the national conversation. As the dust settled, one fact remained undeniable. The shooting of Charlie Kirk was not only a crime but a story that reshaped public trust in the justice system. Tyler Robinson sits behind bars, convicted of the attack. Yet doubts persist, doubts fueled not just by what was presented in court, but by what was missing. The erased footage has become a symbol, for some, of institutional failure, for others of conspiracy. Was it truly a technical malfunction, as officials claim? Or did someone somewhere decide that the truth on tape was too dangerous to be seen? What is clear is this: in an era where every movement is tracked by cameras, the sudden disappearance of crucial video has left a hole no testimony, no report, and no verdict can fully fill. The nation is left with questions that grow louder with each passing day. Questions about justice, about trust, and about whether the full story of that night will ever be known. And so the case of Charlie Kirk and the mystery of the missing footage remains unsolved in the court of public opinion, even as the legal system has closed its file, because until the cameras speak, the truth will remain out of sight.